So, Trump lackey Jamieson Greer went on CBC yesterday, called Canadian negotiators liars, and bragged that there are no open channels with Canada. And he said it like it was leverage. Look, that's not leverage. That's a guy bragging that he hung up the phone and is expecting you to beg him to call back.
And while Washington was busy acting like a toddler and giving us the silent treatment, Canada was busy booking. In the next 2 weeks, Mark Carney will host more than $100 trillion in Toronto, then walk into the European Parliament in Strasbourg as a guest of honor. You don't need an open channel when you've already built 20 new ones. Investing in your own backyard, decoupling from the USA, and shoring up partnerships with the EU is taking center stage today, and boo-hoo, Washington doesn't like it.
So let's just do a quick trade war recap for you, because in today's video, this context matters. Trump slapped those 50% tariffs on roughly $28 billion of Canadian goods. Then Ottawa said it will meet that dollar for dollar starting September 8th. 15, 25, and 50% on the same value of American exports. And just this morning, Ottawa pulled fish and seafood off its own list, which tells you that this is not just a tantrum happening here, it's a calibrated hit.
Then Greer went on CBC yesterday and basically called the Canadian negotiating team liars, and then said there are no open channels right now with Dominic LeBlanc. He thought that's supposed to sound tough, but pressure only works if the other guy needs you more tomorrow than he did yesterday. And Canada just spent the last year making sure that is no longer true. You can pressure a country into a bad deal once. You try to pressure it twice, and it finds new customers, and you lose the call you refuse to take.
And speaking of new customers, let's look at the September calendar. On September 14th and 15th, Toronto hosts the first ever Canada Investment Summit. The guest list manages more than $100 trillion. And Prime Minister Carney's pitch is simple and brutal. Canada looked at its biggest trading partner, looked at a deal that crossed economic and sovereignty lines, and walked away.
And investors love that. They don't like the drama, but they love the clarity. They know who writes the rules, they know contracts will hold, and they know the guy across the table won't change the price after you shake hands. We're talking to you, Trump. Prime Minister Carney will sell them what Canada actually has. Critical minerals, LNG, electricity, nuclear, AI, ports that can move it, and a promise to get big projects approved faster without pretending that the review doesn't matter. That's the win for Canada. Mines that hire, shipyards that hire, plants that stay put, and projects that get done.
And he has something to sell beyond just a speech. You know, Ottawa says it's already locked in $97 billion in foreign investment commitments in the last year. The summit's public target is $1 trillion over 5 years. You're not going to hit that by begging Washington to pick you up. You hit that by showing a room full of wallets that Canada has other buyers and the spine to use them.
And then, right after Toronto Day, Prime Minister Carney heads to the EU. On September 16th, he's with Ursula von der Leyen for her State of the Union as a guest of honor. On September 17th, he addresses the European Parliament at Strasbourg. So when you look at the timeline, this is no accident.
Yeah, because all of this is not just out there as a photo op. Canada has already joined the EU's Safe Defense Plan as the first non-European country ever in. Now, for those of you who don't remember, SAFE is a €150 billion program that lets European countries borrow cheap and buy defense gear together and build it together. Now, that doesn't mean that Canada suddenly gets $150 billion, but what it does mean is that Canada gets a seat at the table where that money gets spent, and Canadian companies can now bid into those builds with European partners.
And we already have an example, so it's not just theory. Montreal's Marconi Technologies just won work to supply tactical radios for Poland. They're built through a Canadian supply chain. It's a factory in Quebec that gets the orders. Suppliers get work, engineers get hired, and Europe gets a second source it trusts while Washington continues to make the case that it can't be trusted at all. So that's how you turn a political pivot into paychecks for Canadians.
Now, I want to be clear here, 7 of every 10 export dollars, they still go to the US. No one is out there saying that Europe is replacing all of that by next Tuesday, but it's the direction that Washington needs to be scared of. Statistics Canada says merchandise exports to non-US countries rose 17.2% in 2025. Two-way goods trade with the rest of the world hit $553 billion, up 14.3% in just 1 year.
And non-US merchandise exports alone were at about $220 billion last year. So the pattern is clear. Washington fell and the rest of the world, it climbed right up that ladder. And Canada already has preferential access to about 1.5 billion consumers through 16 free trade agreements in 51 countries. So Ottawa says it wants to double that to about 3 billion by finishing with India, ASEAN, Thailand, and the Philippines. 3 billion is the target, not the trophy. But the 20 partnerships already signed this year, they are the trophy. Indonesia signed, Ecuador signed in July, the UAE done in 47 days. And that's not a plan just on paper, everyone. Those are actual deals that you can point to with a Sharpie.
And now I do want to highlight an American blind spot that should really be front and center, and that's aluminum. The U.S. Aluminum Association says roughly 2/3 of the primary aluminum American industry uses comes from Canada. Our industry says 75% of U.S. primary aluminum imports come from Canada, more than 60% of what America actually consumes. So think about it. A tariff can be announced overnight, but new smelters, generating capacity, and skilled workers, well, they don't appear overnight. Cars, planes, buildings, cans, the grid, they all run through that metal. And Trump just taxed his own factory floor.
So when Trump and his cronies tax Canadian aluminum, part of all that bill lands inside American manufacturing next week. So the same administration telling you it doesn't need Canada is charging its own car makers more to build cars without Canada. So Washington brought a tariff to a supply chain fight and is mad that the supply chain won.
Now, in my opinion, Canada shouldn't respond by pretending every dependency is a weapon. We sell these products because they support Canadian jobs and businesses. The smarter play here is to keep the American customer where it makes sense while building enough other customers that one government, the US, cannot threaten the whole economy with a tariff announcement.
And you can see the same strategy with talent. Canada has already poached 48 researchers from Harvard, MIT, and Yale, which is part of a $1.7 billion program to bring more than 1,000 leading international and expat researchers right here to Canada. The first phase of the research training side has already offered 659 awards to people from 72 countries. So years from now, that can show up in a new medical treatment, an AI company, a clean energy patent, or a research lab hiring Canadians. Talent tends to go where people believe they can work and plan a future, and to countries that believe in science.
Then there's the Arctic. The HMCS Robert Hampton Gray is now sailing the Northwest Passage on Operation Nanook-Tugalik with U.S., French, and Danish forces alongside us. And NATO is pulling more Arctic work under Arctic Sentry. At home, Ottawa just gave Quebec's Davy $11.3 billion for 6 new Coast Guard icebreakers, nearly 5,000 construction jobs, Canadian steel, in Canadian yards.
Dave, do you see a pattern here? All those files all point to the same direction. Secure the northern routes, build industrial capacity at home, bring in global investment, and open more markets abroad. The goal is reducing the number of ways that another country can quarter you. And that's how you shed dependence and build sovereignty.
So, in reality, Canada has sent a great message this week. While Washington brags that there are no open channels, Ottawa's answer was, okay, fine. Well, we'll keep opening other ones then. Once you use economic integration as pressure, the other side builds insurance. And insurance, once that's built, it doesn't get canceled just because you changed your tone.
Yeah. The USA probably hasn't lost Canada as a neighbor or a trading partner yet, but it has lost the old version of Canada, the one that was wholly dependent. Even if a future White House repairs the relationship, well, good luck convincing Canadians to volunteer to be that dependent again.
So here's our question for you today. Toronto gets the investors on September 14th and 15th. Strasbourg gets Carney 2 days later. If Ottawa can connect the capital to the projects to the customers, where do you think the bigger long-term loss is for the US? Losing Canada as a customer or losing Canada as an automatic ally?
Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and while you're at it, check out the pinned comment where you can see all of our new merchandise. Check out the A-Team and read Dave's Substack because it gets very spicy and he says things that we can't say on YouTube.
Ooh, yeah. And as always, give this a like, a hype, and a share so other people can weigh in on what we're talking about.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Your support means the world to us.
And we'll see you tomorrow.
Ciao for now.